Good evening. We are back again with another great conversation with a fellow Exodus Summit sister. You all have seen Dr. Ramontal on our channel before. Um, and so I thought we would invite um, this conversation to a broader audience that we have been having together. I want to introduce myself. I am Dee of H&D Abroad. Our channel is all about the Move Abroad process, specifically targeting um, Black couples to see moving abroad as a way to embrace a healthier lifestyle and to grow generational wealth. But on Thursdays, I talk to my Exodus Summit sisters about life and living and self-care and what is their process for travel or move abroad. Because we're doing this as human beings that are connected to spouses, to children, to our larger family. And even with the plans that we have, sometimes things take a different path. What does that look like? And how can you have a resilient mindset? So, if you are interested in that kind of content, I encourage you to like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel. I'm introducing Dr. Ramontal. She is the medical tourism RN. Her channel is growing and has been so helpful to me on my journey to find affordable medical care, quality medical care, and medical care that considers all the aspects that accompany me as a Black woman. And I'm so grateful to just how she is championing that, but also honoring her own move abroad journey. So, Dr. Ramontal, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, Dee. Thank you for having me. Honestly, again, it's a pleasure. And I'm Dr. Natasha Ramontal. As Dee mentioned, my channel on YouTube is Medical Tourism RN. So I actually provide a lot of education and information about healthcare and what Black women in particular need to know about if they decide to seek healthcare outside of the United States or outside of their jurisdiction, because it applies globally. So the information I share, unfortunately, Blacks tend to have the higher rates of chronic illnesses and other things that you need to take into consideration when you decide to seek care abroad, because although it may be more affordable, more accessible, there are things that maybe because we are not the majority, or we're not, a lot of people that look like us do not live in the places that we are seeking to go abroad for care. Just want to make sure you're armed with as much information so that you can bring that to your clinician's attention and ask the pertinent questions so you have better outcomes and a better healthcare experience overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all, I'm trying to remember which one you said your most popular video. Y'all, let me sideways, because you talked about things like, if I'm having a head scan and I have locks, you need to be, things, just simple things like they may not be familiar with how something looks on a skin color similar to mine. I mean, when I say these are broad conversations that help us to say what you don't need to take for granted, places that you can go, yes, you can go to an area, they may have a clinic for cancer treatment, but there are countries that are known for. Right. This is the kind of advice, how to identify quality healthcare professionals. All of Dr. Ramontal's information, where you can find her on social media, is in the description. Did you want to just give those points before we get started?
Sure. The social media?
Yes.
Oh, sure. So on YouTube, which is my probably my biggest platform because that's where I drop a lot of videos, Medical Tourism RN 812. And then on all other platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, it's Medical Tourism RN. So you guys will find short information with little bites of things that are really interesting that you probably did not know about, that are pertinent to Black women that you need to consider and share with your clinicians, no matter where you go to be seen. And also I listen to the please comment if you decide to watch the videos and comment on things that you'd like me to cover as well, because I do take requests, because I want to make sure that the information is impactful and useful for everyone who's watching.
Absolutely. So, okay, so we started after um, our discussion last fall. We talked about just getting things in order for long-term care, for your care outside the country. And you shared that your family is and was on a move abroad journey.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about, just because you're married, you have young children, and like, was this a conversation that was difficult to broach with them, or was it you approaching your spouse, or was he approaching you about, hey, maybe we should consider what our professional life, what our lifestyle could look like if we left the U.S. and moved abroad?
Sure. So it was actually mutual. So I will tell you, I've never thought I would live in the United States long term. I never looked at it either as wait until you retire and move somewhere else. I just thought as an adult I would always leave. So I will tell you, I'm Jamaican. So I was born in the US, but my parents are Jamaican and I have Jamaican citizenship through descent. And I always thought I'd probably just go back and live in Jamaica, if not Jamaica, somewhere else around the world, but I didn't know where. And this is long before I met my husband. But my husband is from St. Lucia in the Caribbean, and I met him here. And his family is here and all of that. But the day I met him, long before I even knew where anything would go, he always said, "Oh, I'm going to move back to my country." And
Wow.
I had a job when I got out of undergrad, long before I met him, where I was working in the Caribbean. I was responsible for 12 English speaking countries. So I had to travel there quite a bit. And it's funny because I always used to say, if I don't live in Jamaica, I would probably live in St. Lucia or in Grenada, because those two countries, for whatever reason, I really, really love. I know a lot of it had to do with nature because they're very lush and green. And then the people are just so kind, very, very kind. So it's funny. When I met him, I told him, I said, I always said if I didn't live in Jamaica, I'd probably live in St. Lucia. Who knew it would turn into us later getting married? And we went back to St. Lucia to get married, actually.
Oh,
So
wow.
funny enough. Yeah. So that's how, so I didn't think I'd move there, but I had no issue with it.
Mhm.
For me, it was about a better quality of life. That's really what I was seeking, because I find that it's a rat race here.
Yes.
You're always going for more. Everything is more. It's never enough. And then there were other things. And I think just the political climate as well had made a lot of people a little bit more outward with their racism and other isms.
Mhm.
So those are things I didn't want to raise children in that type of environment. And I have three children, ages 9, 7, and 3. And
Okay.
I've always been told this is the ideal time to transition, when they're
Yes.
that young and they're not accustomed to certain things, maybe as a teenager, that they probably miss in a place where it's considered maybe even third world, if you were moving to a place that was considered third world. So um, I actually told my husband in 2021, I think I'm ready to go. And he was just like, wow, really already? And I said, yeah. So we decided to do a trip in 2022 in the summer with the children for a month in St. Lucia. And they had visited St. Lucia before, but only
Mhm.
for like a week or less. And they visited Jamaica several times as well. But we stayed for a month. We didn't do a hotel, we did an Airbnb at a home. and we're just living life. He had renewed his St. Lucia passport because he's a US citizen, but he renewed his passport. I had gotten my citizenship, Jamaican citizenship during that time, and we were applying for our children as well.
Mhm.
Whether they liked the move or not, I wanted them to have that.
Very
Um,
good.
yeah, yeah, right. And so we started the process. And while we were there, we let the kids enjoy the time. And then about 2 weeks into the month, I started bringing up, what do you think about living here?
Very
But
good.
they do it anyway. But, you know, listen, they're not going to run this. We run it. So I was just like, what do you think? And they was like, my oldest is probably the most critical, but she's
Mhm.
just like, oh, I don't know. Like we visited schools. We we did the whole nine while we were there. The bank account, like we were like, let's do everyday things to
Mhm.
make sure we kind of know what the runnings are. Even though he was quite familiar, but obviously things had changed over a number of years that he had been away. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's how we started. And yeah, that's the conversation.
So so it's sounding like, we've transitioned from kind of I know this is the place that I want to go. This is a place that my spouse wants to go. We have a way to be in a place long term. Um, and you have transitioned from visiting, for kind of a vacation with a vacation mindset to more of a could we live here?
Yeah, the scouting type of mindset.
So is that grocery shopping? What were some of the
Oh
things
yeah.
that you were doing to like, because I heard you say bank account. That's when this is serious
Oh
business.
my gosh. And that was like actually like signing away your firstborn. Oh my goodness. Like the bank situation was just ridiculous. But um, I will say that so grocery shopping, yes, which that never bothered me. I was used to like farmers market type of thing, but certainly there's grocery stores and we went there for that. But in terms of looking at what the exchange rate is and how far our money would go, those kinds of things, it was extremely helpful.
Mhm.
Because being there for a month and saying, okay, let's grocery shop instead of going down to the restaurant in a hotel gives you a realistic view of what you're going to be spending, how much you need to spend, and also what types of things are available. Like we shipped some comforts ahead of time, just kid comforts. If I
Mhm.
know they absolutely love a particular thing, we sent it ahead of time. And then other things were, let's enjoy what's here. It's different, and this will eventually become their lifestyle. So let's introduce them to some new snacks, the games, not a problem. Kids, they're kids, they're young. But in terms of foods, yeah, absolutely. Introducing them
Mhm.
to new things along those lines. And then getting a better sense also for what's the light bill like here. Even though we didn't pay it, we were talking with our Airbnb host, and my husband's immediate family, his parents and his siblings, are in the US, but he has aunts and uncles, cousins. So we talked with them, those that we trusted, about certain schools in certain areas. We actually got with a realtor, and after that trip, I'm sure we'll get to this, but after that trip, we had gone back twice by ourselves, my husband and I, to look at a
Mhm.
house that we were going to purchase there, which we changed our mind on ownership completely with a lot of things that have happened in terms of pivoting with some of the news that we got, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what I'm trying to create is the idea that I can see myself here.
Yes.
And that you and your husband were on your own. I can see myself here process. You're inviting your children into that process. You are inviting family members that live there and at home that maybe this could be a place, so there's that kind of forward momentum. Were you considering working while you were there, or what was that? I mean, were you literally lifting the life components of what you live in the US to St. Lucia?
Some of it. So a blend, only because so I work for a US company. Well, it's a global company based in the US. And I was told it's remote work. And I was always told, we don't care where you live as long as you get the work done. I am responsible for the North American region. So no matter where I move in the world, I just need to be on North American time, particularly East Coast timing,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that I'm available for meetings if I need to. So out of that month, I actually worked the first week, and the rest was the other 3 weeks were my PTO. And I purposely did that because I also wanted to see how well the internet was, not just
I
hear
was
what
going to say
people tell.
number one is internet.
Exactly. If you're not connected, it doesn't even make sense, right? So,
Right.
and people tell you things all day long, but until you experience it, you don't know. So we wanted to experience the internet in that particular area and all those other things. My husband worked a little bit as well. He was off and on throughout the entire time, actually. And he doesn't have a remote job. He's in education, but they were out for the summer, although he's in administration and had to. Normally, he'd be in the building, but he had the travel approved before all of that happened. So it worked out. Um, part of part of the transition though was that we didn't know what he would do for employment. And
Mm.
because he's in education, I was like, well, there's a lot of education jobs that are remote. He's in administration, but I was like, still, people need that. And he said he was still open even to a local job. And I was just like, it's not going to be anything near what you make in the US, but he kind of didn't care. And I didn't either, because to be honest with you, the our money would have stretched so much further
Mm-hmm.
if we had moved and he didn't have a job. We still would have been in a fine situation. It really would have been okay. And that was a plus as well, because that's not the case living in the US. And that those are things that we think about too. How much more can we offer our children by way of experiences and more valuable or quality time as a family together?
Mm-hmm.
And it would free us up to do more things like, okay, instead of maybe going to another city, we could probably island hop and go to other countries, from here to visit and learn more, or we'd save up for a bigger trip to go somewhere else, maybe Africa, maybe Europe or something, or Asia, another time, versus literally sitting here in the US and trying to scrimp and save, because
Mm-hmm.
it really is tough. It is.
So I just want to say, like, you were doing all the things, if this audience knows, we've got a checklist. We're talking about scouting trips, and we're saying, can you see yourself in this place? Do you have work that will support you while you're there? I mean, you're doing all of those things. So I know for my husband and I, like, our whole mindset for how we do things in the US is literally like, we don't need to buy that because we are. And so your even your decision making, your thought processes, your priorities, your goals for your family, for your finances begins to look different.
Yeah.
And so you're on this path, because when we spoke this fall, you were saying that you all were you all had put a timeline together.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let me tell you. There's a phrase that whenever you make plans, God laughs at you. He
Woo.
must have been laughing really hard at us because we had gone. It's okay. I made the decision like late December. Oh no, I'm sorry, late in 2021. Hey, I'm ready to go. 2022 in July was when we spent the month with the kids, and as soon as we did that, then it was let's travel and go back and look for a house, which my husband went by himself like 2 months later, saw a number of different things. Then he the thing was, to purchase it, we would have had to sell the house we live in the States, which I'm not opposed to.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to do that. We had reached out to our to sell the house, because in order to purchase something, we would need to sell this. And he was like, okay, great. no problem. So I still went back to St. Lucia because my the house on video and pictures. I want you to see it and feel it. It's not the same. And I was like, no, I agree with you. So I went down, loved the house, and came back and was like, okay, we're gonna do it. Let's move. I don't want to do another year and start the kids in school. The best time to move is the summer.
Summer.
Well, that was December when I looked at the house. We're going to get out of here in the summer. And I told the kids because we had already conditioned them on the 1 month trip and they started to warm up to, they were like, yeah, I could see myself living here. And the only thing was like, they have a great relationship with my parents and a great relationship with my husband's parents. And both are in the US, in
Mhm.
South Florida, where we live. So that definitely would have been a challenge to not have their grandparents readily available to them, and that was a concern for us, but we also said that's an opportunity for them to visit, and
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for you to go and visit in Florida again. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you can't. And they when we posed it that way, it was a little bit more palatable because
Mhm.
on the 1 month trip, it happened to have been my parents' 50th anniversary that year. They were married in August, and we said we're going to give you a trip. My sister and I paid for them to come to St. Lucia like 1 week out of the time we were there. So we
Oh,
took them around, and the kids got to see them, and they were so happy. Their grandparents were there. I said that's how it would be if you lived here and they came to visit. So that was really helpful too, because my parents enjoyed their time and said this was really great. Um, and the kids loved seeing them. And then, of course, it was hard seeing them off, but it was, you have something to look forward to again, and
mhm.
you can go to them. It doesn't always have to be them to you. So that was that. But I will tell you, for the house, I was so ready. I was so ready. I was like, yes. And that I didn't realize until we had to pivot with the situation that we'll share. That is honestly a US mindset to just go somewhere
Mm.
else in ownership. I mean, I do know in like just Jamaican culture, Caribbean culture, it's very different when you own a piece of land. It's your land, you own it, you build your house, that's it, you own everything. Here, the mortgage, you just keep going, the bank owns it in 30 years and all these things. That is not the way that it works everywhere around the world. And you just make
Mhm.
assumptions sometimes. Oh, yeah, let's go and buy. But moving, knowing that all of our support system that we really do depend on in terms of being close to us siblings and parents were
Mhm.
here. And one of the concerns my husband had, even though we were really ready to move, was okay, we're going to sell the house so we wouldn't have any property here. There's um, uh, no other way to draw any equity out of anything
Mhm.
if we
Mhm.
were to use it all to purchase something there. And you're not going to have the same setup as you would in the US. I didn't care. I was just like, okay, yeah, I don't want anything here. Let's just sell it. Let's just go. But I realized what he was talking about after we had to pivot, because I said to myself, what if we had to come back for whatever reason?
Mhm.
Whether it's even my children or him or me sick, to the point where maybe it's not going to be handled in the best way in that country, and maybe you have to prolong healthcare for whatever reason in the US or another country. It didn't even have
Mhm.
to be the US. And I said, man, that's true. All of our equity would have been taken out. What do we use to do that? And it would have been
Mhm.
to sell. So I said, okay, I changed my mind about ownership, but it didn't happen until we literally had to pivot, which was because of a health issue.
Yeah.
My, in January of last year, 2023, my mother in law was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. And she had no health issues whatsoever before that. And my husband is one of 7 children, and it was genetic. And so that meant he
Mm.
and his siblings also had to go through genetic counseling to ensure that they didn't have this particular trait that would lead to them having this particular cancer. So they wanted the entire family tested. We thought it was a little too intrusive for children. We said
Mhm.
if the parents test and have it, then we will test the children.
Mhm.
So we remained here, stopped everything, did not go through with the house, I mean, we even purchased a car, like a little pickup truck to ship down. I mean,
Mhm.
we were ready to go, ready. I was like, you guys aren't going to do another school year in the US. I'm so happy, telling them this. I was like, adventure awaits, and we pivot. And it was a rough year with that news and also with the
Mhm.
treatment because it was extremely aggressive and they really were at least the prognosis was not good, but those are doctors. We believe in God and he has the final say. So
Absolutely.
it was tough and rough for several months, and then she did really, really well. I mean, came out of it and was even going to visit sick people, you know,
Mm.
like she was back to herself and felt really good. And then and that was for about a period of 3 months, and then she started to decline again, and they said that it started to spread again. So
Mm.
she's going through treatment now, and she's doing really well right
Good.
now.
Good.
She has a lot of bad days, but she has more good days. And this is something that has led us to put our abroad plans on hold, and we do not have a time frame as to when we will leave. We both are committed to still leaving. We both do not know when, and I would never push on that because I have lost a lot in my life, in terms of life. I've lost two brothers at a very young age,
Mm.
and there's never a time where I want my husband to ever want to hold his mother's hand or to just see her, or anything he can do with her, and can't be able to do it, or you have to take a plane ride to do it.
Mhm.
And if it were reversed, I know he'd feel the same for me.
Mhm.
So I had no qualms about not knowing when, because of, I know why we're doing this. I think for me, the biggest thing is what's next, because there's always going to be something
Mhm.
in life. And I don't, I really desire to leave the US. I really do. And so those are things that I'm struggling with. But the way that I kind of looked at it in terms of coping is, okay, what can I do now that will
Mhm.
help me prepare myself for whenever it is, whether that's with the children, whether it's myself, some of the things that I work on, the decluttering that people talk about. Yeah, I'm very minimalist now. I'm like, okay, so when the time comes, not too much to pack up. Let's just do it.
I want to take a moment and just honor what you've shared about your family. It is it is heartbreaking to hear that someone that you love has a a health battle,
Yeah.
but cancer um, has impacted my life, and family members close to me, and I have seen closer what that looks like and how it can impact the person and those who care and are caring for that person. So I want to say, as several people have said in the chat, that our hearts and our prayers are with your mother-in-law. Our hearts and prayers are with those who are the providers of her care, that are helping her to navigate this at an emotional level, a physical level, a financial level. Those who surround her with support and encouragement, and we want to give that energy to you during our time together. And I want to say thank you for sharing it. This is an emotional topic, because I think moving abroad can feel like there's so many points of joy and release, and but there's still also questions. You don't ever tie up a life, and then when you have to pivot. Let's see. So we've lost Dr. Ramontal shortly. She will join just in just a moment. But when you have to make a pivot, as she said, you just stop. You stop. You take in what what needs to be taken in. your timeline is yours. It doesn't matter if you've told family members, friends, your job, your church family. People have thrown you a goodbye party. If the timeline changes, it changes.
Right.
But how you manage that change and adjustment, to hear you say, I do this because I want to give this to my husband, even with the urgency that I feel to leave, that relationships matter, and that I want to say that because I've heard some really I've heard some really interesting things when people say one person in a marriage is not ready to leave and someone else is. So as and to say for your children to be involved in this process of understanding that things are pivoting and changing, there is an adjustment. There needs to be time to mentally adjust. So as you feel comfortable sharing, what support did you feel like you received or needed that helped you to be able to navigate those early months? Because so much is going on. So much is going on.
That's a very good question. So thankfully, I have a supportive family. My parents, my younger sister, she's amazing. And I have very good, close friends, but I also have community through Exodus Summit. And I have utilized some of what everyone has gone through, whether it was a reluctant partner or something where maybe someone was divorced or custody issues, so that has caused them to pivot. Just hearing what the different issues are and how they've handled it has helped me. I think with the diagnosis, just family and faith has been a lot. I will say that we did get therapy for my oldest child because she was cared for by this grandparent before she went to school as a baby when I went back to work. And so it was tough. And she still gets it. And I even at one point was just like, I'm overwhelmed, you know. But the community that I have around me to share what they've been doing has helped me to kind of do that, because my mom even shared, uh, this is just a setback. It doesn't mean that it's, I don't even want you to leave, but it's a place for me to visit, But one of the things she shared was, don't wait to live by
Mm.
moving. This is just something that's a temporary setback, and you don't know when it will be. Because, like, I literally went out and bought like some kitchen mats for the house that I thought I was going to be in St. Lucia. And I remember keeping them in the garage here. And when my husband put them out, and like put them out displayed in our house here, I was like, no, he did not use my St. Lucia mats. And, and my mother was like, it's just like, let him, don't do it. Don't worry about it. She said, you live in the now. Because
Yes.
you don't know. You don't know. And when she said that, I was like, you know what? I should know better. That's true. Because at that point, I said, I can't say that I'm going to wait to move abroad to live what I think is this lifestyle. Because to me, I honestly do equate a certain level of freedom with leaving. And that freedom is the quality of life I so desire, because I literally am burning at both ends here in the States. I do have family here, but what I will say is that my husband and I are the ones that like live here in our home, but our siblings live with our parents. And
Ah,
so when there is something in the house with their kids, the kids are a part of the household. Whereas if I need a little help, someone has to drive to come and do it. And it's not the same unless if I'm going out of town, then absolutely they're there. But it's not the day-to-day help. And I was just thinking about, do you know how far this money can stretch? I could have a helper. I could have someone help prepare meals, clean the house, do the laundry, all those things. So some of those things I started incorporating, like get someone to clean the house now and then. Now, some of the other things that I have not done, but I'm still looking into it. I'm doing that little by little. And then, of course, like I mentioned, decluttering. I still talk to the kids also about these are some of the things that you'll experience when you move. And I don't specifically say St. Lucia because, to be honest with you, now we're open to other countries as well. So that has been something too. And then we decided that, okay, since we cannot leave, at every point we're going to slow travel. So I'm always looking at deals, and for whenever the kids are out of school, and I'm like, we're going somewhere. Like this spring break, we're going to Colombia. In the summer, we're going somewhere else. I'm looking at summer camps in other countries. So I'm trying my best to still do it. If we can't be there permanently, we're going to get the experience, because we were always travel people. We always love to give it, instead of throwing a party for our kid's birthday, we'd be like, let's go to another country and enjoy ourselves. And that's what I
Experiences.
do. And so that has helped tremendously, I have to say.
What I hear is we took some time. We took time, and every family member needed a little something different
Mhm.
at a different point in time, and then adjusted, and then pivoted. When you said that you all were going, let's see, where did you? I can't remember where you all went in the fall. Like, I can still travel. I can still do.
Panama.
I can still live, and that in that living, it gave you time to slow it down
Yeah,
and actually make different decisions that align better with a long-term travel plan. So
exactly.
if I were to use the word blessing, there are blessings. Even it sounds like in disappointment, there's the blessing of being able to say, I I dream and I dream again.
Absolutely.
I
And
hope
dreams change.
and dream.
They change.
So grateful, so grateful. So as
Absolutely.
you
I have to
as
say that I don't know if I have a delay, but I want to make sure I tell you that it's interesting because it also helped us tremendously. And I look at it as a blessing to not have purchased the home in St. Lucia, because now, no matter where we go, I don't want the ownership. I want to be able to live somewhere and say, if something doesn't work, let me call the landlord to fix it. But I also feel like selling our home in the tremendous ease, life of ease for us. Um, and that's a blessing as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. There, whether you are directly connected to a religion or just believe that, that there is some guiding force that you want to be in alignment with, that giving yourself the space, to have a goal and to be open to how that process may move and change, that flexibility of mindset, I think, keeps a dream living. Keeps a dream living, because disappointment, I specifically wanted to use that word in the description. So moving abroad, disappointment, can literally crushes some dreams. I look at different Reddit sub feeds and move abroad Facebook pages, and see people say what I thought and what actually happened didn't align, and I'm so disappointed. I'm so disgusted that I'm just going to throw the whole thing, the whole process away. I'm going to go back to the States, and I'm saying, but you can miss out. You can miss out. How have you decided to use the idea of resilience to keep you moving forward with this move abroad dream, in spite of or because of the disappointment?
So there's a Jamaican saying that when you make an appointment, make room for disappointment. And so I've always operated in that.
Oh.
And so I was just like, okay, I thought I was leaving July 2023, but disappointed, but let's see what happens. And all these things slowly revealed themselves to us that turned out to be blessings,
Mhm.
despite going through the challenges of my mother in law's health journey. And one, I realized, at the end of the day, you're going to still get to do what you want to do. We just don't have a timestamp, right?
Mhm.
And I think being plugged in to the Exodus Summit community, even though I'm really ecstatic when I see women go off and families go off and actually achieve it, or they go on a scouting trip and they've decided and all these things. It's really, it gives me an opportunity to, one, tap into them also as a resource to say, hey, what are some of the things that maybe you didn't prepare for or think about that now that you're there, you are dealing with? And that
Mhm.
helps me too, because you can't prepare for every scenario. You just can't. And so it's really good to hear from families, especially those that have young children like mine, because for me and my husband's safety was the biggest thing. And
Mhm.
then healthcare, education for them. But there's so many options with education. You can do public school, private school, you can do international school, you can do virtual school still in the States. There's so many options. That was never my issue. And I figured socially make sure we socialize them with kids their age in
Mhm.
country. You
Mhm.
can get them involved in sports, you can get them involved in church, whatever activities, those things. There's a ton of things that you can do. So I learn from the community of folks that are interested in going abroad, and I tap into them frequently.
Mhm.
And while I'm here, though, sometimes I sit here and I purposely do not watch the news. But if I happen to watch it, the first thing I say is, "This is why I'm leaving."
Right. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I took a chance and turned on the news yesterday. I used to be a newsie.
Me
Like,
too.
I was
Me
just
too.
all in. I want to know. I want to see. And I was just like, no.
I don't want to know anymore.
I mean, the amount of anxiety I
Yeah.
felt just hearing the news and the
Yeah.
skepticism sometimes of even the perspective that's being presented. I
Yeah.
know because I know more of the world. I'm not going to say I
Exactly.
know the world, but I know more about the world. And yes, things are happening and I should be aware because nobody needs to be out here wilding out just on their own, but to be consumed by it and allow it to shift how I want to interface with real people in the world. I agree about
Yeah.
disengaging that. Did you consider yourself before this a resilient person? Did you feel like, hey, I'm facing supporting a mother-in-law that's going through a tremendous health issue that my husband is processing, my children are processing, I am processing. Did you consider yourself the resilient person that I see you as before this?
I did, but I will tell you, not by choice.
Mm,
Not by choice. So I came from a semi big family as well. I was one of five, but I lost two brothers. And when I was much, like, 10 years apart. So like in 96, I lost a brother in a plane crash. And then in 2006, I lost a brother to a heart condition that he did not know he had. So he literally seemingly was healthy and just dropped dead.
mm,
And so those things have shaped me and also gave me the compassion that I needed. That's honestly the last death that I experienced of my brother. That's what led me to nursing, because I was in a
mm,
completely different industry. And I went back to school to hopefully learn how I could impact others so other families wouldn't experience what we experienced. And so
Mm.
that's why I feel so strongly about sharing knowledge and insights about health. So that, because health is wealth, doesn't matter where you are in this world, that's the one thing that equalizes all of us.
Mhm.
Right. And I worked in the emergency department. So people would come in, and unlike on a floor, when you are a nurse and you're working on floors, you have to go through an insurance process. So
Mhm.
people will say, "Oh, here's my insurance." So when they come in the emergency department, you don't do that. You literally have to stabilize them. And then after that, somebody else can deal with whether they have insurance or not. So
Mhm.
I'd have people who are literally having trouble breathing, and they're pulling out their wallet to give me their insurance card. I say, "I don't
Yeah.
need that. And I'm going to take care of you." And that's the mentality you have in the US. It's
Mhm.
insurance first, or I'm going to care for you. I'm going to care for you. I don't care about the card. I don't care what the card says. So I think a lot of it had to do with dealing with those um, situations, those tragedies in my own life that helped me build resilience, build upon my faith I already had, and put it to the test.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just, there's trial. Um, but let's see. I think the saying is, for every test, there's a testimony. For every instance in your life where you are learning a lesson, I feel like I'm inviting you to share it, because other people should be inspired by the story of, hey, I'm still a whole person navigating life, and I may have a diversion due to disappointment, due to, other things that intervene on the life that I have, but I can still move forward and still dream and still benefit from what I'm learning about myself, my partner, my children, the community that surrounds me and supports me, to see them in a different light, um, and to treasure the life that I have, the breath that I have. I'm inspired by you, and I'm so honored that you're sharing your family's story with us today. I want to say, or I want to
Yeah,
ask
thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah.
I had a good example. I have to say that
Okay.
my parents, I could not see them. My parents are happy people, and to see that they've lost two children, and if you met them, you'd never know. And that to me is the true test of faith and resilience. If I have an example like that, who am I? I must follow in those footsteps, because it was their children that they lost. I have an excellent example of faith and resilience, so I follow that.
Wow. That To honor your parents as well. To honor your parents as well. Um, I Personal resilience, flexible mindset, giving room for how things change is the core of this conversation. How you did it, it's just weaving the threads of your story is, yeah, you have intention, and then that intention may need to shift and change. How are you creating or opening, honoring these parts of your life that are also moving with this dream? I know you said that you all still do, and have maybe even are looking at some new places. What else is that resilience looking like in your move abroad process now?
Um, so a lot of it is around, does this place particular have everything that we think we desire? Because
Mm.
what you think you want is not always what you actually want, you know, or what you need, or what you need. So when we do the slow travel, I think we also discover a little bit more about us, you know, as individuals, as a couple. And then if we take the children, because there are times where we don't, but if we take the children, then as a family, and making sure that we look at what the necessities are for our children
Mhm.
first and foremost, and if it's enough, you know, because St. Lucia is a very small country.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we noticed is like, man, there's a lot that has to be imported, you know, even though our dollar stretches, what about importing all of these aspects? And do we really want to wait for some of these things and all of that? So that has kind of been some of the things that led to us also looking elsewhere. But I think we both never envisioned moving abroad somewhere where we both did not have roots. And
Mhm.
that is different for us.
Mhm.
Like for me, yeah, it was always Jamaica. For him, it was always St. Lucia. And I didn't have a problem with St. Lucia when I met him, simply because I had already been
Yeah.
socialized and worked there to know, hey, I love these people. They're kind. It's a great place. Um, and I thought to myself, well, gee, there's a whole world out there that we haven't explored,
Right.
where we don't have roots. How do we still maintain some of that as well? Because we do want our kids to grow up knowing both heritages, and we can do that by visits. But the other piece is they're away from the immediate family members that they now have access to, where you kind of get it regularly. So
Mhm.
looking at places that maybe have, if it's outside of the two countries that we were thinking about, do they have a vibrant Caribbean community? Do they have a vibrant Black community? Like all of those things, just reevaluating what maybe these things were on a list, but maybe shifting what
Mhm.
place they held, you know? Um, yeah, thinking about things like that, you know, because that's important. We want them to thrive, and we don't want the kids to feel that we are just uprooting them away from their immediate family.
That this is a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing it. There have been so many great points in the chat as well that have just been, you know, affirming your approach. You know, especially about Tasha was talking about. Yeah, when you are out traveling, you can
Mhm.
kind of say that might be that place, but that's not everyone in that place. That's not the whole world is a negative place, and the best place
Yes.
for me, and that is for me is in the U.S. And to challenge that and travel definitely does that.
Yeah,
Um,
we say that we make home. No matter where we are in the world, we are home to our children. So we can
mhm,
pick ourselves up, and as long as we are okay, the kids are okay. I don't tend to use the US media or even the State Department when it comes to looking at how safe a place is to be, because honestly, I've traveled to a number of places where they said I shouldn't, alone as a female, very young when I was had that job, and I was fine. And if you look at the State Department warnings, you'd never go anywhere. And quite frankly, they need some for the U.S. They need them in many
I
cities
just want
here.
to. I'm just like um, I called my mother. There was a shooting of four men a block and a half from the church that she attends.
Hmm.
And I was just like, this is Friday and you're going to church this weekend? She was like, girl. And I was like, so don't ask me about my safety in any of the countries we're considering when a block and a half from where you go regularly. But she was saying, you know, I know the behaviors that I need to have, and I said, and you have taught me those things, and so you know, I am learning to. I have learned to be a safe person because of it. So I'm this is a beautiful conversation. Were there any points that I didn't get an opportunity to ask about that you really wanted to share about, you know, how to be a resilient person? If someone is looking at their situation and they're facing obstacles, what are some tools or tips that you could share that would help that person better engage to honor how they feel and then begin the process of moving forward. Let's see, there is a delay. Hold on just a moment.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We had a technical difficulty, and I heard part of it. I heard the first part. Any tips,
Okay,
but I
so
didn't hear the rest.
yeah, I was asking about tips for helping someone that might be in a similar situation, that might be facing some difficult choices on their move
As
abroad journey. What are some tips for touching those spaces that, and then moving and finding a way to move forward?
I would say the first thing is plugging into your community, like a community like Exodus Summit. One of the things that I learned from Exodus Summit is that many people who shared their desire to move abroad and actively working on it, they actually were not well received
Mm.
by family and friends, which they didn't realize. So I actually kept it quiet. we we didn't tell anybody. We didn't tell anybody. We just started. We're just moving and doing all these plans, and we were like, we'll tell them later when everything is in place. Like literally, I was probably going to tell people a month out or whatever. Which is bad, but hey, it was going to work. I didn't want to hear anything, and it wasn't going to change our
Mhm.
mind, but it wasn't going to help us hearing negative things leading up to it. So we didn't share. And I learned from the Exodus community that you should share it with people who are like minded.
Yes.
So I plugged in by asking questions and listening to anyone that was moving abroad with children, especially young children, because I had heard a lot of stories about those who had teenage children or nearly grown or adult children, and the experiences were quite different than what I was hearing from those who had young children like mine.
Mhm.
3, 7, and 9. There's not a lot in terms of, well, we don't want to go, and that's that. They saw it as an adventure. So I would say the biggest tip I could give is plug into a community of like-minded individuals to share your wins, your pitfalls, whatever it may be, because those are the people that understand, and they're
Mhm.
not going to tell you things like, see, told you you shouldn't have moved abroad. Or once you tell somebody where you're thinking about going, then they start giving you nothing but bad news about the place. All of a sudden they're the police on Mexico, Portugal, Jamaica, St. Lucia. Like, i can't I can't. So that, I would say, that's the biggest thing. Honestly, that's the biggest tip I could give. If you do run into a scenario where you have to pivot for whatever reason, and you don't know when you're planning on leaving, I would say don't feel like it's a letdown. Everything happens for a reason,
Mhm.
and continue to work on you so that you're a better you for whenever you do decide to leave. Because there are some things that I said to myself, oh, when I have more time and have that quality of life, I am finally going to get around to doing X. Well, I make it a priority now to start working towards X because I don't know when I'll leave. So I do that now.
We did a video, it might have been like our second or third video, that talked about, why am I waiting to do these things when I move abroad? Why
Yes.
can't I begin to incorporate those things into my life? When you said, look, I'm moving so that I can either get help with childcare or have someone help me clean my home, I was just like, I might want to look into a Mary Maid. I might want to look into somebody coming, because why should I wait? I might not have that chance.
Right.
And if these are things that I really want to center into my life, then hey, the move abroad process is the bonus.
Right.
I am creating the life that I want to live today.
Right.
So thank you all so much for joining. Okay, I'm putting Angie's on here because so many people are saying,
Oh,
thank you, Angie. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank
Yes.
you.
Um,
Thank you.
Tanya Brooks, yes, I needed to hear this. Servant Teacher Nikki, Tasha Journeys, Lynn Bernard, thank you guys so much. Tanya Brooks, Michelle, everybody, thank you so much. Pisces Pret is on tonight. Sabangle with We Don't Retire, We Ascend. Kimmy Apple, Arnell, thank you, Arnell. She's a local sister. She's my local Exodus Summit sister.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, so these, when we say surround word up psychotherapy, thank you so much, y'all, so much for joining. Community, Lori Butler, y'all, community is really
Yeah.
where you can get that energy, where someone can have an empathetic ear, where people are always sharing. Hey, I had trouble getting my visa, but I found this strategy works. You
Right.
want to be in community with people who you can ask a question without the concerns, like you said, of being judged, of, instead of celebrating, they're trying to come up, they're sharing fear.
Yeah.
They're sharing fear. And so, whatever point you are on your journey, we are celebrating you. We are a community that is sharing, that is learning together, and we are honoring the different paths that each of us are taking. Exodus Summit is truly the community that is the gift that keeps on giving. Because let me tell you, Dr. Natasha has a channel, and we are YouTube accountability partners, several
Yes.
of our YouTube accountability partners.
Amazing.
We all have channels. We share how we are growing. We collaborate together. This is literally a community that continues to give. It is worth the investment. People, you raise your hand and say, I want to know, someone's going to reach out and say, you can DM me, you can ask me questions. And I'm so honored to be a support and to feel your support as well. Because I know you had a full day at work today. So thank you, Dr. Ramontal. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. As I mentioned at the beginning of today's episode,
Yeah.
all of
I thank you so much for having me.
all of her details are in the chat. Do you want to give it to us one more time where we can find you on social media?
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's Medical Tourism RN. She's on Instagram. Dr. Ramontal is on YouTube. She's gone live as well as uploading videos, and she's got great TikTok. So go ahead, subscribe, like her videos. Like she said in her comments, if you want a video for her to produce, type it. We are a community that supports each other. We are here so that you have a resiliency group to tap into. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Ramontal, and everyone for joining us tonight. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.